What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? You know what time it is. It is your host, Gaddis TV. We are live and direct with Pimulus from Sinos Global. Before we do anything, you know what time it is. If you got yourself an iPhone and or an Android, do yourself a favor. Go to the Play Store and or the iPhone store. Download the FTX app. Stay up to date with the latest cryptocurrencies and NFTs. And without further ado, I am your host, Gaddis TV. What's going on? And yeah, let's get to it.
You'll be able to hear him in 2 seconds.
Yeah, and we're live now. So no, first off, like I was saying, I guess when I was muted, we're live with Pimulus. And first off,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you for coming out and take some time out of your, I guess, evening kind of day and just coming on the podcast. So first off, honestly, thank you.
Yeah, of
Uh,
course. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
100%. For some of the people that will be listening, because of course in the crypto space, a lot of people will know, maybe not exactly you yet, but the company Sino Global. So can you just give us a little background of honestly who you are? I guess what you were doing before crypto, what got you involved in crypto, and then how'd you get involved with the company?
Yeah, sure. So, basically, this is like I guess my first real big boy job, like ever, I guess. I mean, before this was just sort of like internships in school and stuff like that. So I guess I'm a fresh out of college,
Nice.
hire. I ended up dropping out of college like 2 or 3 months ago. I guess 3 months ago now, before starting this. So I guess the way that I got there was, middle school. No real life friends, obviously, just like fucking played World of Warcraft and was on my computer all day. And so got pretty interested in like programming and stuff like that. And so like early high school was just sort of playing around with like Linux boxes and using that as my daily driver and hating proprietary software and being a privacy enjoyer and all of that edgy stuff and writing some code in my free time to sort of teach myself. So I think that's like kind of I mean, Anatoly was on a podcast a while ago. I think like his podcast, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I started out doing, being like a Linux nerd hacker type person." I think, I mean, obviously I wasn't like a hacker, but like um, fairly similar background. So it feels maybe a little more natural like to this space, or maybe that makes sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, so high school ended up getting like an internship at a like a lead gen company, um, uh, basically just doing like back end development work and then like some DevOps, like putting out fires, kind of stuff like that. Writing bash scripts here and there to fix stuff. Making sure servers are up. Checking like salt configuration files, stuff like that. And so that was really fun. And it sort of turned. I mean, it wasn't like an internship. I mean, like it obviously was an internship, right? But like ended up doing some fairly serious like heavy lifting on the back end, like putting my own pull requests in to like add new features. Just work on sort of the lead management system. Write a feature to export leads and cron jobs to push CSVs through emails, stuff like that. So that was like pretty full on like developer experience early. And then I guess while I was working, like I always kind of had an interest in the markets for whatever reason. So I would like sort of day trade options at the desk whenever stuff was like deploying or whatever. Check markets and read stuff like that. Always super interested in that. And then eventually I was like, maybe doing like full software isn't for me. I'm gonna try this whole markets thing. So went to college, started out doing econ and math, um, and got like a sort of a gig, this like weird kind of internship at a VC fund. It's like a super interesting structure. Basically, it's like a traditional IC type of you know fund, right? There's a full committee and there's like GPs, LPs, stuff like that. But basically, all the diligence was done by students. We would write like full on like investment memos and PowerPoints and stuff like that. And the reason it was a really interesting structure basically because we were students, and because a lot of the companies we were investing in were like very local. The fund like qualified for CRA contributions. So basically there are these laws in like the 70s or 80s to prevent redlining. Basically means that banks have to like invest in um, companies that like give back to the community or whatever, just as part of this like holistic test to make sure they're like being good for the community or whatever.
Hmm.
And so that was like, so yeah, it was like a really interesting fund. Um, because obviously like the other products that they would invest in for like community reinvestment is like lower middle income, mortgage-backed securities, which are like yielding 4 or 5%, something like that. But obviously venture scale returns are substantially better. So there's a really unique opportunity, really grateful for that. And then kind of developed my love for like startups and investing because the lead gen company I came from had like, 9 people or whatever. So yeah, just kind of like super broad background, but everything just kind of like came together, and was interested in crypto like on the side, I guess for like the macro reason, right? Like, Bitcoin, inflation hedge, whatever. I'm, reading a lot of like zero hedge at the time, being like, the S&P is going to zero, like, everyone starts out like being a bear and bad at trading or whatever. And then like also on Wall Street bets. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
but that exposure to crypto, I was like, oh, okay, like this is a cool asset, I guess was where it came from first. And then I like looked at the technology and like read the white paper and stuff and was like, holy shit, this is like completely transformative. Like, oh my God. It was just this like light bulb moment when I realized like, what Ethereum could do, right? I mean, back in the day you had, like the most economically productive invention ever was like the shovel, right? And then from there you had like this whole historical process over thousands of years where labor gets more and more structured and like abstracted or whatever. And now we've just gotten to a point where it's like, you don't even really have like variable costs, or those are like offloaded to users, and you just have this like autonomous software running, and oh my God, it's totally going to be the next thing. And that was in like 2018, I think. And so yeah, just like I guess I had always had like the investor mindset. Because early on I discovered, after like immediately blowing up a Robinhood account, that maybe trading per se wasn't what I was going to do for a living, or at least not a super glamorous living, because I'd just be losing money. But yeah, so like, read the Chainlink white paper,
Hmm.
because that seemed like the obvious way to me. Like I still had, school and all this other stuff. So it's not like I could like be super, it's not like I could figure out like what the next big DApp or DEX was going to be. I mean, DEXs weren't like super big then, but like I figured, hey, this is like kind of the selling shovels play. I can just like buy a bunch of Chainlink because I understand the tech. Like everyone's going to have to use it, and now I like don't have to worry about who's going to win because I've got this like infra play. So basically, I just like plowed my entire life savings into Chainlink and like everything I was making at that job. In like 2018, 2019 was like a total link marine or whatever. Um, Definitely a little bit of slash biz action, if you know, you know. But yeah, so that was like sort of the origin story. And then I just like couldn't shake the crypto bug ultimately. And going through undergrad, like, I mean, I really like the math curriculum. Like, it is enjoyable to me. But ultimately, like at the end of the day, I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I think college is like kind of silly for a lot of reasons. If the situation is right. And so, um, before, I guess last summer, I was just like, okay, I'm not going to do another internship. I'm just going to do crypto full time over the summer. Like, try some futures trading to like pay the bills or whatever, and then, um, read white papers, do investments, stuff like that, and just try to like get in the space and like find people and find a community, and how this typical spiel goes. And then after that, I was like, I just loved it so much. I was like, okay, I fucking can't go back. So went back to school in the
Hmm.
fall. That lasted a whole 2 weeks. Um, like basically, so the story of dropping out was funny. Um, Went to so I DM'd this guy on Twitter, Barrett from Cipher Protocol, and was like, "Yo, like I'm a math student at the University of Utah. Like, fucking, let me intern for you, like, please." And I DM'd this like sitting in my like foundations of analysis class just in the morning. I was like bored as shit. It was like very mundane sort of intro to the school year stuff. And so I sent him that DM. He was like, "Oh yeah, just like come into the office." I was like, "What?" Like, he was like, "Yeah, later today. Like, just like come in." And I was like, "Wait, oh, okay, cool." Um,
Hell yeah.
yeah, so I just like drove down, met him, we talked. Um, it was awesome. Hit it off. He like actually did give me a internship, which was funny. And so I came back the next day and I was like, "Man, this is awesome." Like, but I don't know, like time commitment and stuff like that. Like, have you heard of people that have dropped out of college? Do you think that's successful? Should I be in college? And he was like, no, like I don't really think anyone gives a fucking crypto. Like you can kind of do whatever. Like if you can code and you can show that you can code, like it doesn't matter. And so I was like, oh, okay, bet. So I went home, dropped all of my classes. So yeah, within like
Deuces.
48 hours of meeting this guy, yeah, I just said peace out, dropped out of college. And before like Cypher, I had like floated a resume to Sino. Um, and so eventually like that hit, and you know, talked to Maddie and joined up, and yeah, that's why I'm here. Sorry for like being so long-winded, but kind of
No,
like a
No.
non-traditional story. And so I guess I like want to say it because I know there are a lot of people that I guess I sort of like felt trapped, you know, like I was gonna have to like go find some 9 to 5 or whatever, and like, you know, fuck, like I'm not exceptional. I'm not from like an Ivy League school. Like I went to state school. Like I'm not, you know, different. And so I guess I just wanted to be like pretty granular so that other people know that like there are like you can absolutely forge your own path.
yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I'm glad you said that as well, because I mean honestly I got a lot of people like friends in honestly real life. I guess maybe not a lot. I got like three, but they're doing honestly super well, excluding the crypto stuff. And realistically, I mean they didn't go to college or anything like that. And I'm in the States as well. You know, I'm assuming you're in the States just how you're talking. I guess I never asked you something like that, but
yeah. I'm in the
um,
States.
yeah, I mean I hear you on that one. I mean I'll be honest with you, I never technically finished college just because the job I had at the time was honestly very good. You know what I mean? So I like the fact that like you said, you know what I mean? Like you reached out. One, you reached out. That was awesome. Two, that you were doing what honestly you were loving, like the passion stuff. Like it always sounds, you know, dumb or cliche. You know what I mean? But like that
Yeah,
stuff, like you said, like being transparent. Someone could be listening to this and be like, you know what? And not everyone, not saying to everyone, you know, listen, drop out, do all this other stuff, but like you put your mind to it, you can 100% make things happen, and you know, put the dedication to it, like you were saying. So that's honestly,
hmm
that's what's up on that end,
yeah.
man. That's congrats to you,
That's
and
that's
keep
the
it strong.
thing. Like you're totally right. The phrase like, you know, like follow your dreams, whatever. Like all of that kind of like that whole domain, like it sounds so cliche and so trite and so banal, but like I think there's actually quite a bit of truth in those like little, you know, quote banal platitudes or whatever, right? Like the old like wisdom, you know, as stupid as it is, like the more you grow up, the more you realize like, oh, that stuff's like actually kind of true, you know, and so yeah, I mean, you really just have to like act on it and take sort of a leap.
You
Um,
do. It's like anything. Crypto is like it can reward you the most today, in my opinion. Like it's like that with anything, with like music or like if you want to start a business that you've been thinking about for a while. Like sometimes all it takes is just doing it, and then you realize you're like, wow, I should have did this like way sooner. If I wasn't like, I wish I would have just got like just dove into it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and it was kind of with that with crypto with me. Like I wish I got into it sooner because I knew about it sooner. You know.
yep, totally. And I mean, I think going through like the decision process to like jump in, and like I'll preface this by saying fuck Jeff Bezos, like, you know, what a dick. You know, like go race to space, whatever, like your workers are peeing in bottles, like I fucking hate you. But also, like I did think about like his whole like regret minimization framework of thinking about things, because like obviously he left a hedge fund to go found Amazon, which was like a super not intuitive move.
Hmm.
And he said the reason he did it was because like he would have just always wondered like what if. And so I
hmm
guess that was what I was thinking, like, you know, if I don't do it now, like I'm always just gonna wonder what if I did that. And it turns out it
Yeah.
like actually worked, which I mean I don't feel special or anything. Like I mean it totally could have like not worked, but it did. And so I mean forever grateful, right? And I think that's something to be cognizant of every day, is like how grateful I am for the whole space. And that's something that you'll see like a lot of people echo in crypto, I think, is like just how awesome it is. So super unique, but yeah, always worth taking that leap.
No, 100% with that one. With the honestly, that's how the podcast in general started. And I just reached out and said, hey, I want to create a benefit, or trying to create a benefit for the Thugbers in general, and they gave me the opportunity, and it was, I didn't think it was gonna happen, but it did. So always reaching out. Don't be scared to honestly ask. Even, yeah, you might get a no, and I'm a person that hates no's. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you gotta know what your worth is, and go out there and try to get it. With the whole aspect of the company, I guess once you apply, did you know what Sino was before? I guess applying for that, or have you or did you hear about them through the loop since you were kind of always in the financial kind of realm? When did you first hear about them?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, I think, and this is like a common thing when people know about Sinos through like Maddie Graham's Twitter account. And so like I thought VC was like kind of a space that like made sense for me given my skill set. And so I thought, maybe something like that would make sense. But Sino is actually like the only firm that I applied to. Because like
Hmm.
I don't know. I honestly I think the cooler thing about Sino is just how um like I don't know, it's like not stuck up or pretentious. Like no matter who you are, and I think this was like really why I applied, honestly, was like I just like replied to Maddie's tweets. Like, he would say something funny and I would like have a comment about it and I would send it back. And he'd like my tweet, and sometimes respond. And I was like, holy shit, like no one else does that, right? Like you're not gonna get like Lloyd Blankfeiner, like, Jamie Dimon to like respond in a comment. And like, I don't know, I just think there's the VC landscape and the financial landscape is changing so rapidly with this like democratization stuff that I think if you're like not positioning yourself as a firm to be very transparent and open and like community oriented, like I think Sino is, um, then really your only value prop is like being able to pool money and like have smart people. But now there are a ton of smart people in the space who can pool
Yeah.
money. I mean, like look at Constitution DAO, look like stuff like that. So I think like DAO investing is going to be a very, very real force like to contend with. And by contend, I don't necessarily mean like compete, but I mean like if you're going to join a venture fund, either join one that you really love the culture of, right? I mean, ideally like both, but also, you know, it makes sense. It made sense to join Sino because I thought it was something super special, and that turned out to be like completely true, right? Like I'll make super random like rants or posts or whatever, and just be like edgy on Twitter, and like no filter, whatever, just like being genuine and open and whatever. And Maddie was like retweet it, and before I'm going like fuck, like should I really be saying this? And then I'll be like, yeah, whatever. Like it's fine. Like worst case, like Matt usually yells at me or something. But every time he's like super supportive. He's like our stud intern, whatever. And it's like it's kind of
Yeah,
hilarious.
that's what he
So
said.
yeah, super,
When we were gonna talk with, he's like, "Yeah, man, he's a stud, bro. So you're doing something right, man. You're doing something right."
something. I mean, I think he's being very, very generous. I'm not I don't think quite the product he thinks I am, but I try. So I mean that's all you can do. But yeah, Sino is a really, really special place. So I'm super happy I came on. Yeah.
I asked the kind of interview question on that for some people that would be listening in general and don't know what a sino is.
Mm,
What would you explain to them in layman's terms? The mom and pops, I mean, what does Sino Global
yeah,
do, and I guess what do you do in the company?
totally. Yeah. So Sino Global Capital is a venture capital firm that is what we call crypto native. And for outside listeners, that just means like, we strictly invest in blockchain technology companies. Like we're not going to do like an AI, object recognition deal or something like that. We're not going to do like, consumer fintech healthcare type startup deals. But in every other aspect, you can really mentally think of it as a traditional firm. And this is like a phrase I think that we use internally sometimes, that like we are a traditional approach-ish kind of firm in this very, very cutting edge, non-traditional, totally out there space, which is like a good place to be, I think, because obviously like we have with this new fund like LPs and stuff, right? And so you do have to have like, I don't know, like you can't be like totally crazy. You can't just be like, okay, all of our balance is going into Dogecoin for the day and we'll figure it out later, right? So you have to be like structured and principled and like actually operate like a VC fund does. But we operate in like the crypto space, so we do early stage crypto deals. And at a more granular level, what that looks like is basically a company will be very early on and they will need funding to pay the bills, keep the lights on, hire developers, hire talent, and stuff like that. And that might sound like kind of obtuse or whatever, because hey, you can do this in your garage, costs are offloaded to users. What kind of overhead do you really have? You just need a laptop. But the moat for a lot of these businesses is going to be network effects. And so there's a big first mover advantage kind of thing happening. So these firms are going to want to scale very, very quickly, get users, get traction, find product market fit, iterate, do all of these like buzzword type things very early. And generally they will need like funding to grow. But I think there also is like some aspect of, I mean, it's just such a wild, wild west type of space that actually just like knowing that there is venture involvement means that people are like serious about it. And if the venture firms are well reputed, they've probably done their DD and stuff like that. So there's, you know, maybe a little bit of a rubber stamp aspect, but the core of it is that early companies need like growth capital. And so what we do is we give them that money. And in exchange, we take a percentage of their equity, so tokens or like actual equity, although that's much more rare. We can get more granular on like those deal terms and like what SAFs look like if you're interested. But yeah, basically, it's a super high risk, high reward type of space. So the idea is that you throw all of this money at these tiny little fledgling companies that could be nothing, and you hope you find like the next, you know, Uber, right? And I guess in crypto terms, maybe the next like Uniswap or the next like, you know, I was going to say like KlimaDAO, but maybe that's not so investable for a traditional firm. You know, but yeah, the idea is you hit a couple home runs that return the fund, and that's like kind of what you're doing. So it's almost like moonshot degen gambling, but in a much more professional way where you're trying to find firms that are like actually adding value to the market and not just like number go up, which is super super fun job description.
No, for sure. With I guess with that, what does Sino Global look for? Like in general, if
Mm.
there's other startups or things like that are like dead serious, you know, listen to it.
Mhm.
What do y'all look for overall?
Yeah, so I think there's like a lot of the traditional like carryover from traditional VC where you look for like product market fit traction, stuff like that. But obviously those terms are like fairly arcane, or esoteric maybe. So to get really like blunt with it, basically you want to find the best way is to find cool people doing cool shit, right? People
Yep.
that are really innovating in the space, doing interesting new stuff, people that are very driven, I think. So I think we have much more of like a situation by situation sort of approach. And part of this comes from the fact that our old prop fund was started by Maddie, like after he literally met Sam Bankman-Fried in Hong Kong, like over lunch, because they were looking at, you know, Alameda to be like an OTC counterparty. And he was like, okay, this guy's like special, right? This guy is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, onto something. And that was sort of a people bet, right? And so I think that that's actually still like a very helpful framework for investing in Web3 is doing it based on people because all of this stuff is going to be so early. There's going to be a lot of pivoting. And I had a discussion about this with a friend the other day that I think there is like some sort of maybe like downside protection almost in crypto VC where, you know, these tokens are like so liquid so early. It like not a lot of your investments are like going to go straight to zero like in a traditional, you know, VC fund where you actually like have to worry about liquidation preference because they like might actually have assets, stuff like that. And so basically that means that I think the like sort of the pivot option is always more on the table, right? Because it's not like the market's going to like immediately nuke your token to zero and you're going to have to like go completely defunct. Like there's a little bit of wiggle room, and so
Yeah.
it's kind of nice betting on teams where you know that they've got the right idea, they're very well versed in the technology, they're true believers in the space, they're not just looking for like cash grab type opportunities, but they're genuinely trying to find something that will add value to consumers, and then hopefully, you know, find a way to capture some portion of that. And so yeah, that's why I think we look at teams a lot and think about sort of specific deal dynamics as opposed to like broad strokes, sort of like top down theses, because those change like so quickly.
No, 100%, especially in the whole crypto space. I mean, as you know, it freaking quick as hell. Um, with I guess people that don't know, and Sino Global is based out of mainland China, and I guess you said you're from the States. How does something like that work out on there? Just as I guess like an employee wise, or there's
Mm.
I guess like how would
Yeah,
that
so
happen? You know?
yeah, sure. So the way that works, and I'm sure if our in-house GC is listening to this right now.
Yeah,
He's
don't get
trembling
yourself in trouble
and
now, all right?
shaking. But to be clear, the focus is sort of on the Asia Pacific region, right? Like that's where the Sino name comes from. We've made a big push into India recently. Stuff like Korea, Japan, Vietnam potentially on the table in the future. And then the mainland China question, right? So it's like at the end of the day, the fund A is like not based in mainland China, right? The actual like entity is like an offshore, like Cayman fund traditional structure like that. So none of the money is in China, and basically I would think of it as like, I don't know, we probably have some like market insight from that market, but it's not like we're doing stuff that the Chinese government would deem as like particularly like you can tell I'm talking very slowly here,
Yeah.
particularly like offensive or whatever, right? Because I think this is what people don't understand, and I didn't understand this going in. But China is much more about spirit of the law rather than letter of the law. And at the end of the day, what we do is we provide, like basically market color and investment decision making for offshore money. It's not like we're actually like mining stuff in China. We're not setting up an exchange in China. We're not trading in China. It is exclusively making technological bets, from a different like sort of jurisdiction. So the legal color there is sort of that, and I probably won't get more granular on that just
Yeah.
because I might like misstate something. But yeah,
Yeah.
generally, like, I mean, projects will like tell us like, oh, hey, we've got like all this, traffic or traction in like the Philippines and like Thailand and stuff, and it's like actually those are like Chinese VPNs. So it's you know what I mean? Like it's still like a very big space there, and I think the government is very concerned about making sure that there's not rampant retail speculation on things that might go to zero and cause social unrest. I think they want to watch their sort of energy consumption with the whole Bitcoin oil shortage, mining stuff, and then obviously maintain their monetary hegemony with like the Chinese yuan and the upcoming like digital renminbi and stuff like that. So like very broad strokes, doing just like investment stuff and using China as like sort of go to market value add stuff like that is, I think, probably very much within reason of like what is yeah, I mean it's not like
It
the
is.
China Flood like shuts us down is
Yeah.
I'll put that. Okay. There
No,
we
no,
go.
no, you're good on that. It's kind of another, I guess, kind of question on that one. I guess two. Because I was thinking of it when we were explaining it. Just like for companies that are looking to be invested like from y'all. Can they be like, I guess, anywhere in the world, or are there certain places or regions
Oh,
that like can't do it? I guess how does
yeah,
something like that work?
totally. So the team is actually like very distributed. We have a couple members in that region, but I'm in the States. We have a guy in the Netherlands. We have people in Singapore and Malaysia, stuff like that. So we are like completely globally distributed. And so as far as companies or potential investments go, like we would invest sort of wherever. Like we don't have a geographic preference or like, oh, we're not going to invest in you because you're here. At the end of the day, it's just like you are here. Cool. We're like very well versed in how markets work in the Asia Pacific region, and so we can help you with sort of a go-to-market strategy. There is how that approach works. Yeah,
Nice.
and obviously, like our recent push into India, which like sounds, I don't know, cliche or whatever, but honestly, I'm like very shocked that like not a ton of other firms have done this. I mean, it's just like such an awesome market, um,
And
and
I guess
like
speak on that because I'll be real with you. People like me, I guess, don't know exactly. And we're right at that 30-minute mark, so I'm not gonna hold you too much longer as well. I told you it'd be like 30 minutes, but I guess speak on something like that because if that's something y'all are doing that other, um, I guess VCs aren't like what are
yeah.
y'all doing at that?
Yeah, sure. Well, first on time, like I can go for, however long you want. Like this is sick.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
very much enjoying this. So there's not like a hard cutoff that I have.
Awesome.
But yeah,
Shit.
right. Yeah. No, so I just mean like focusing on the innovation that's happening there and
Mhm.
really getting like very granular like market color and and stuff like that. There's like, it turns out that when you look at a geography very closely, and this is not something that I was privy to before Sino, but when you look at a geography very closely, it turns out that there are a lot of like idiosyncrasies within that sort of region that make you more, I don't know, adept at navigating those markets and like figuring out what's going to work, what's not going to work. Um, and yeah, so I guess we have like two people in our sort of internship to hire program right now that are geographically based in India, and so they've been helping us sort of get boots on the ground and really make strides there, make connections, make networks happen. A lot of this stuff is like very network driven. So when I say like focus on a region, I guess I mean just like understand how the dynamics work there and sort of get those relationships built out so that you can investigate more deals that originate in that geographic area, and for the deals that don't originate in that area, help them acclimate themselves to that market when they do decide to sort of find a community in that area.
No, I mean 100%. Honestly, makes sense to me because I think of it as sometimes it's not what you know, it's like who you know in all aspects of it or all aspects of kind of life and stuff like that. So honestly, that's awesome. That I mean, again, I'm not no VC or anything like that, but that sounds like y'all have been doing it right in that aspect of it because again, y'all could be reaching out and because y'all are doing the due diligence that way, you know, a Gaddis company, which is that's not my company, you know, and it's not even a real company, but I can reach out like, hey, you know what I mean? Let me get to them because they know, like you said, the Asian market, or they know so many more people than me, which,
Totally.
again, even on the regular everyday person like listening, like of course it sounds, I guess regular, you know what I mean, like common sense, but at the same time,
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
not to an
there's
extent,
going
you
to
know what I
be,
mean, you know.
yeah, there's like a lot of stuff in the ecosystem or like in the VC space that is like actually very technical, in-depth knowledge that you should understand and have whatever. Like, I don't know how term sheets work and, deal dynamic stuff like that. But like at a high level, it's like really not that complicated. I think people always try to make their jobs sound much harder than they are to like justify their position. Um, like my profile picture right now is a monkey, and frankly, I'm not that far from it in real life, right? Like, um, and I think like if you can just be honest about that, it's I don't know, better for the community because people will be like,
Yeah.
oh, look how smart I am. I'm a genius, blah, 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 and that's why I deserve to make this much money. And maybe it's worth considering that, like, hey, if people are actually honest about the work that they do, like, you can maybe have a more candid discussion about where value gets added in the system and how that distribution works. I mean, like, someone like a Jim Simmons from Rentech, right? Like, greatest quant fund, like, in history, right? Not that he has any like connections to the U.S. government or anything. Uh, like, but that's like controversy for another day. But yeah, I mean stuff like that. Like obviously, yeah, you can print money. Like you're giga smart people. You only hire astrophysics PhDs. Like of course, but there are a lot of there's some low hanging fruit or whatever. I guess. Yeah, I guess the point is like I'm not a genius. You know,
No,
we
you
we
good.
do we put money in companies that need money, and hopefully we make money when they get bigger. It's like
Yeah.
yeah, it's like really very straightforward. I think.
No, 100% with that. I guess a question with I guess have there been any I guess misconceptions in general of I guess things you thought like before working
Mm,
for Sino Global compared to now, not like on the company itself, but just on things you would have thought of beforehand. Um,
mm.
any big ones like that?
Yeah. I mean, how do I say this? I guess everything always looks different from like quote the outside versus the inside, and I think that the one thing that I would say, I guess that is like a very eye-opening thing is like yes, the space is like becoming democratized very quickly, and that is a objectively good thing in my view. And I think that we will continue in this direction, just enabled by what Web3 technology can, bring to the table. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, I think still there's a lot of value in sort of like network circles and stuff like that. So as much I mean, you always want every system to be as meritocratic as it possibly can be, but ultimately, there is still, quite a bit of, I guess, not like explicitly like insider trading or whatever, right? It's not like really well defined, but there is like an insider sort of understanding of the markets. And like, for
Yeah.
instance, I mean, just watching private deals and watching the valuations that these things get, you can kind of get like actually a shocking amount of market color and sort of understand when the space gets very frothy. And
Mm.
so I have a newsletter that I put out just like with stuff that comes across my desk. So you can find that on my Twitter. But
Okay, nice.
basically, yeah, like in that like 2 3 weeks ago, like right before this dump happened, I was like, hey, like there's a little bit of froth in the private market, so I'm gonna take some risk off, like not financial advice, but like, hey, that's just like what's happening. And shockingly, it's like, oh, that actually turned out to be like a
Right.
completely correct call directionally, right? And so it's just stuff like that that I think you think is like gonna go away maybe on the outside, but at the end of the day, like always having a closer pulse on the markets just because you have friends that are in high places in those markets is always going to be advantageous. And so,
Hmm.
I guess like what I'm saying is like buyer beware, right? Like if you try to trade these markets, be aware that if you're doing it in a discretionary fashion, there are people with substantial asymmetric information on their side, and you should approach it with the utmost degree of caution. Friends, like the example that I'll reference, and I'm not like shitting on 3AC here or anything, like they're like brilliant guys, but like if you try to follow them, right, like try to follow their trades or whatever, like you're just going to get wrecked because they move so quickly and stuff like that. And I mean that like that's your competition, right? You always want to find areas where there isn't competition and just do that as much as you can, right? And so I would say like trading is actually like, I don't know, there's probably more of a barrier to entry than you might think coming into crypto, and that's sort of the realization there. The flip side though is that all of these like companies like are liquid and tradable, right? You can't
Hmm.
really trade private markets in the United States. It's a completely fucked system where they just like exclude poor people because they think they're stupid and can't make, decisions. And it's like it's horrific because they miss out on like a disgustingly profitable asset class systemically, which I mean, yeah, I mean, that's messed up. But in crypto, what's cool is like if you think if you want to do long-term fundamental driven investments for your own accounts, I think that is actually something that is within reach of, I think that's something where you could actually outperform if you really put time and effort into it versus traditional markets where you couldn't access these deals. Now it's like, I don't know, what's something that's like going public soon. Like XDeFi, for instance, right? It's like a wallet. It's a portfolio company of Sinos. I think they had their IDO already, and it's like I don't know, like it's pretty early for them too. Like, granted, we
Yeah.
got in earlier. Obviously, we're venture, right? We did
Right.
take bigger risk on that in the sense that they could have gone to zero from when we invested to now. So of course we're
Right.
going to capture more upside, but like relatively speaking, it's still very, very early.
Hmm.
And so I think if you think about markets sort of like not maybe not a super value investor, right? There's like no book value for any of these companies, but um, I think there's probably still edge there. I guess it's like my giga long-winded answer to that.
No, you're good. I do got a couple more. I'm not gonna keep dragging it out, but it's more of a, I
Oh,
guess,
well, good.
personal kind of questions on this one, and then I guess how the company would work if you can say stuff on and not get in trouble or
Sure.
fired or anything crazy like that.
Yeah.
Being an outside person, all I'm thinking of, you know what I mean, is y'all getting a big, I guess, deal, investing on someone. You know what I mean? Y'all make the right decision. It gets a home run. I don't know numbers wise. Y'all make 100 million, whatever the $1 million is. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
guess is that like celebrated like that? Is it like Wolf of Wall Street? You know, everyone's ow, going crazy like
Oh, yeah.
that, or you know what I mean? On the inside, I guess just I don't know. Y'all recognize? Is it just like a thank you, or and then second to that, have you ever made like a big, I guess, savings or big investments for the company? You know what I mean? Like personally,
Yeah.
how does that feel?
So
As a
at a
human.
high level, like as for like so just to be clear, like with my own personal account, like I think I don't. Yeah, I literally don't own
Then yeah,
an
you don't have
asset.
to
I mean,
do that
I
part.
have like degen shit that I do here and there that's like not connected to Sino, but
Yeah.
most of it is like, I mean, I just keep it in like Ethereum and Solana in yield farms and don't
Yeah,
look at it so that there's not like conflict of interest stuff. But the
for
weird thing
sure.
is that's like pretty like optional, if you will, and we have like a pretty strong internal stance at Sino that like we do not trade or like civil attack portfolio companies. I mean, you probably saw maybe some controversy around insider airdrop farming and stuff like that. But my deal is like, look, there's so much opportunity in this space. I don't need to squeeze. Like, I just kind of stay out of that whole, um, world and just ignore it. So I can, I try to ignore my PA so I can like focus on the fund. And then at the
For sure.
fund, like, there's not like uh, every fund's going to be different. So some funds do like finder's fee kind of structures. So like if you find a deal and you do it and everyone feels really good about it, then like you get like 10 grand or whatever. Or some funds do it where you get co-investment. So you get like X% of the deal size you can personally allocate to. Some funds do it where you just get a percent of back end carry on a specific deal. Um, so there are like a variety of different ways you can structure that. I don't know even what I can say about how we do it,
Yeah, you're good.
but
It's just a
our
question,
structure is like designed such, and you know, you probably deduce from this, but like designed such that it's like very, very collaborative. Um, so everyone sort of gets comped sort of in the same way, if that makes sense. Like it's not like I'm just gonna like rake in a ton of money if I bring in a good deal. It's like I'm trying to bring in good deals,
for the
right? So
company and
that
all.
yeah, exactly.
No,
Yeah, totally.
100%. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then on the culture side, like yeah, this is something that I don't even know how to like fucking approach this, but like the Wolf of Wall Street stuff is like you think that like crypto is just going to be this like really cutesy, niche industry where people, where weirdos like me, frankly, can come in and everyone like would celebrate a deal by having like a Counter-Strike LAN party. And actually, it
CS:GO,
is
yeah.
less. Yeah, right. Uh, yeah, add me after this. You want to play or something? I'm
Counter
in
Strike
Discord.
LAN party.
Let's
But
fuck with it. I like it.
yeah, no, it actually is much more Wolf of Wall Street, I think, than people realize. There actually is like I don't know. I mean, people print a bunch of money because they get in early on this stuff, and like yeah, like you go to a crypto conference and you're going to like these clubs, and there are like bottles and stuff, and I think that's not like something that people at Sino are like doing particularly. I think we're much more tame. I don't think Maddie's been to a party in the last 5 years of his life, and I don't think he particularly cares about that stuff. And frankly, neither really do I. But yeah, like I think learning how to deal with the whole like opulence of the financial industry, um, and as it pertains to crypto, is something that I'm still frankly grappling with. Because, and I actually just like wrote a little article on my personal blog about this yesterday, or maybe the day before, just about sort of like what motivations look like, and is this really altruistic democratization Web3, or is everyone just like trying to print money? I think the answer is like kind of towards the latter, as unfortunately, like ultimately, all of this technology will have positive sum outcomes. It is going to create a better internet. It is going to create a far more decentralized financial system without intermediaries. And these things I think are objectively good. And it's not like you can just, like shit on crypto bros and being like, oh, you're just trying to like print money. Because like ultimately there is good stuff happening in the space. But at the end of the day, I think for most of the industry, it's like most of the participants here, I think if they could have been in the banker shoes 40 years ago, where they're the ones taking those bonuses off overdraft fees and like doing middle market restructuring deals and firing people, like I find it hard to convince myself that people wouldn't do that. And I'm not saying I'm a saint either, right? Like, I mean, I am financially motivated, and I think there is a lot of financial motivation in the space. I think there is a lot of Wolf of Wall Street stuff. And I think it's just best to be like very frank and open about it. Because like if you're trying to hide it from the rest of the world, like maybe you should consider if what you're doing is, I don't know, like justifiable, in a system that offers, ostensibly like, opportunity to everyone. So there are a lot of hard questions in that space. And I don't fully have the answers to all of them. And
No,
I'm,
definitely.
still working on it, but
Honestly, and
it's
I
it's
think,
an interesting problem.
yeah, I think, I don't think it's necessarily the problems, things like that, because I don't think necessarily just like VCs, like that's like human nature in general. I mean, back before the
Yeah.
crypto, all this other stuff, I was doing some network marketing stuff, things like that, and the same type of ordeal. It would be, a celebration, or the clubs, things like that. Where, yeah, I don't think that's just like a crypto thing, anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
All I could just see
totally.
is, Wolf of Wall Street, and it just, you know what I mean?
Yep, yep,
No,
yep.
I like it on that. I guess, kind of last question. Hopefully, you won't get fired on this one as well.
Oh God,
How
this has been a
is
gauntlet.
Matthew as a boss? You know what I mean? For
Oh
the people
yeah.
that are, thinking, you know what I mean? How is that? And I guess the last one, what was don't get fired as well. What was one of the craziest
Okay.
stories, if you've heard one, that he's told you? From anything, from wrestling
Oh
to, honestly, I don't know too much about him, but what
yeah.
what you got, if you can?
So I guess I'll start with the stories first, actually, just because it's like less interesting maybe of an answer, but it's like I feel like you don't like hear like I don't hear like stories from Matthew, right? It's not like he's like, dude, I like had this connection at, Alibaba, whatever. I got this like robot dog. It's like you just see him do it on Twitter, like with no warning or whatever. It's just like, oh, he's doing this like crazy thing, which is hilarious. It's definitely Matthew. So yeah, and then as a boss, man, he's awesome. Like I have nothing but gratitude and good things to say. He is very, like, dude. So I got COVID recently, and I told him, I was like, hey, like, I'm probably gonna miss this call tonight, whatever. Like, I'm just like, trying to rest, whatever. And he was like, I totally understand. Are you free for a call 1 second? I was like, oh God, like, is he ever gonna talk next steps? Like, what does he need me to do while I'm sick? And he was just like, take off as much time as you need. I'm so sorry. Like, is there anything we can do for you?
Nice.
Like, just like super, like, I mean, he's just like a person, like he's a very,
Yeah.
yeah, like that's Matt, man. Like, he's open and transparent on Twitter. He's a nice guy, I think. Like, I mean, he just fucking rocks. So, I mean, yeah, like nothing but Maddie simping from me today. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's really great.
Hell yeah. And we'll wrap it up on that one. For people that have, I guess, listened and are interested in your blogs you were talking about, or I guess some of the things you were on, where can they find
Mm,
you? Like, what's your
yeah,
Twitter handle and things like that?
yeah. So my Twitter, let me make sure I get this right. I got one shot. It's at 0x Pemulus. So Pemulus is spelled Pemulis. If you know, you know. Yeah, so find me on Twitter. You can find all my links like off of that page, like my blog and newsletter and stuff like that. And then just like my random, completely, uh, you know, out out of left field Twitter comments, which is what everyone's here for. So yeah,
Hell yeah. Well, stick around for a quick second. I'm gonna go ahead and end it. But thank you for coming out and taking some time out of the day. So I'll be right
yeah.
back.
Thank you for having me.
100%, bro. 100%. And we'll get some CSGO going on as well. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you know what time it is. Once again, thank you very much for coming in, tuning in, showing some love. It's your host, Gaddis TV. If you're not already, do yourself a favor, follow Thugbirds, a pod, Thug Dow, as well as Pimulus on Twitter. Shout out Sinos Global for allowing us to have him on here. And as always, y'all, stay fresh, stay clean, stay positive, and caw-caw!